Thanks, John. It's good morning, it's good afternoon now. John went over time, but we won't get onto him for that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Martin is my name. I'm a part-time teacher and a full-time beef and tillage farmer from Rathnure in County Wexford. I studied agricultural science in SETU and completed a Master's in Ruminant Nutrition at Harper Adams University. Over the last 2 years, I've had the opportunity to travel across North and South America, Australia, Indonesia, and extensively right across Europe. My Nuffield investigation is improving the competitiveness and sustainability of beef in an era of globalisation. And I suppose to put that in plain English, I'm basically looking at how we can future-proof Irish beef with that looming threat of Mercosur. So how can we improve the sustainability of Irish beef from our farms, our processing industry, our retail sector, right through to our kitchen tables? Well, in the next 12 minutes or so, I'll outline the global scale of beef production, price of beef production around the world, Ireland's unique position within that, how the EU's declining output of beef and how we can capitalise on that. And I will give 4 simple and concise recommendations that can help us along that path. I had the opportunity to travel across the Central Plains of the United States, visiting farmers, ranchers, and cattle feedlots. They work off type margins similar to ourselves here at home. It's very much a numbers game. Cattle come in, they're fed, and they go out. The US is experiencing similar market trends as us here in Europe. Price is at an all-time high, and supply is at record lows. The US has seen a 9% reduction in the cattle herd since 2019, and I asked the question, why is this the case? Speaking with Jacqueline Wilson, a 2024 Nuffield scholar in Nebraska, she said the price farmers were receiving for years was too low and drove many out of the game. She also highlighted about drought and climate issues that are affecting cattle numbers. And she also highlighted a problem that's seen around the world, which is farm succession. And young people in the Central Plains United States not that interested in getting into farming. Despite these challenges, the United States still stands as the world's biggest producer of beef at 13 million tonnes annually. Based off what I see in the US, it will continue to be a major player in global beef production, but I would see a further drop-off in supply and production levels. I spent a month travelling across South America and in particular Brazil, a global powerhouse of production but also consumption. Brazil is the world's biggest exporter of beef, but still they consume 80% of what they produce domestically. And I can see why. When I was there for about just over a month, I ate beef every single day for 30 days straight. Some days I even ate beef twice in the one day. If you're asking me what it tasted like, I would have to say it was very salty, laced in salt. It was also slightly tough due to the Bos Indicus cattle, but the beef was cheap. And there was lots of it. And we all know, if something is cheap and supply is plenty, we can chew a bit harder, we can process it a bit more, and it will sell in a shop in Bristol or Strasbourg. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Bristol and Strasbourg, that's our hunting ground and we need to defend it. But we need to up our game and we need to play to our strengths. When I came home from Brazil and people asked me what I was doing out there, and I said I was visiting some farms, especially in the Amazon region, they'd usually say, oh, sure, them lads are just knocking down the rainforest there for grow crops and feed cattle. And I suppose they would have a point. But we must realise that when a consumer on a low income is doing the weekly groceries in a supermarket in Birmingham, and they see Brazilian beef burgers £5 cheaper than the Irish ones, they'll quickly forget about food miles, the Amazon and the rainforest, and they'll shuffle their way to the checkout with Brazilian beef burgers in one hand and a 4-pack of Coors Light in the other. We may be small and we can't compete with Brazil and the US on scale and price, but we can on quality and traceability. We must play to these trends. As Brazil and its South American counterparts begin to ramp up production, we see the opposite here in Europe. France, Italy and Germany have all seen recent falls and drop-off in supply. The EU alone has seen a 3.8% drop in production. I travelled extensively right across France and spoke with some farmers in Normandy, an area steeped in its agricultural heritage. And farmers there said the same problem, succession. They said it's either get big or get out. France is losing its family farms. Also, many spoke about the price and market uncertainty makes it unsustainable for young farmers. There's no doubt Europe is losing its family farms, and with that, its agricultural social licence. As we continue to see the CAP budget fall, the prospects of beef farming in the European Union are becoming increasingly difficult. Ireland getting free access into the European market is imperative. 90% of our beef is exported, and almost half of that ends up in the European Union. We are the envy of the world, and if we're outside the European Union, our beef farm incomes will be down 30%. How do we grow further in a sustainable fashion that allows us to capitalise on the falling supply in the EU, but also compete with cheap South American imports? Our Irish farms are very small in nature, but strong in quality. This wouldn't be possible without our great friend CAP and the subsidies it provides. 44% of all beef farm income comes from farm subsidies. Beef farming really is that heartbeat of our rural economy. Our beef producers are spread across 100,000 family farms. You may not realise it today, but our connection to these family farms is lessening. And with that, our agricultural social licence is threatened. As an island nation at the edge of Europe, our economic success lies on two pillars. The first is foreign direct investment, which has been transformative, but it also creates vulnerabilities. Around 30% of our total income tax revenue comes from corporation tax, and almost half of that comes from just 10 multinational firms. The second pillar is our indigenous sector, and at its heart lies agriculture. Unlike the multinationals, agriculture is locally owned, regionally spread, and deeply connected to Irish communities right across the island. In 2024, our agri-food sector exported €17 billion worth of food, supported 170,000 jobs, and exported into 180 global markets. During the bust, it was farmers who kept the economy moving. Farmers kept working, kept exporting, and helped drive Ireland's recovery. For a number of summers, I worked pouring concrete, a tough gig, I must admit. One day I was chatting to a driver from Roadstone, and he really put it simply. He said, during the bust, it was farmers who kept them in a job. Farmers were building, growing, expanding. It wasn't Amazon and it wasn't Apple. We cannot let agriculture become a fall guy in a future trade deal like Mercosur. When the next downturn in the Irish economy comes, agriculture again will be one of the few steady players keeping us on our feet. I have 4 simple and concise recommendations. The first, Ireland's beef sector depends on small and medium-sized family farms spread across the island, but feedlots are expanding. And 27% of all beef in the first 7 months of this year came from a feedlot system. To counter this, I propose a national rollout of a bonus of €100 per head to farmers who finish less than 50 cattle per year using native Irish grains. This supports 2 goals. It keeps value in rural communities and creates guaranteed domestic demand for our tillage farmers. It's a simple, targeted measure that can be rolled out through existing DAFM systems. The second, our politicians and farm organisations must fight tooth and nail for Ireland's best interest in the European Union and the UK. We cannot let Mercosur beef onto our patch. This is our home turf, and we must defend it. To put it simply, and I've seen it with my own 2 eyes across Brazil, their beef traceability system is counting teeth in an animal's head on an abattoir line to determine its age. While in Ireland, we can tell you the very day a calf was born and who its grandparents are. Ireland will have the European Council presidency in 2026. We really must utilise this for Irish agriculture. Ireland now faces a major opportunity. As EU beef production continues to decline, and France alone expecting a 30% decline by 2035, we can capitalise on this. We can fill that gap. Through smart carbon labelling and blockchain-based traceability, we can connect with the growing number of conscious consumers who want to know the story behind their food. So imagine this, Imagine a shopper in a supermarket in Paris scanning a QR code on a packet of steak and being brought directly to a farm in Wexford, seeing the farmer, seeing the land, and the care behind that product. That is next-level traceability and the key to securing Ireland as the home of premium, sustainable beef. Consumers ultimately decide the future of our beef industry, yet many are now disconnected from where their food comes from. We need to rebuild that link, which is why I propose a national rollout of farm-to-fork workshops, educating our youngest consumers on where their food comes from, what sustainable farming is, and how by supporting Irish food products in their local supermarket supports local family farms and local families. But a recommendation is only as strong as its implementation. And with that, and to bring the idea to life, I launched a pilot farm-to-fork workshop in my local primary school, teaching children about where their food comes from and what sustainable farming is. Part of that was a tasting session which featured some of my own home-cooked beef, yogurt, cheese, and they all came from 20 kilometres from the school. The results were clear. Engaging our youngest consumers today builds informed, conscious shoppers for tomorrow. I've seen beef farms in the Amazon basin, in the dry plains of Nebraska, and the hills of Normandy. But nowhere in the world have I seen the pride and passion that lives in our Irish farmers. We have the land, the grass, the skill, and the story. We just need the courage to tell it loudly, and the conviction to believe that Irish food and Irish beef belongs at the very top of European food. The next chapter of Irish agriculture is being written right now. Let's make sure it's one we're proud of, a story of strength and sustainability and pride in where we produce our food. I'd like to thank the Nuffield sponsors for sponsoring the programme and giving me the opportunity to be here. I would also like to thank my family for always supporting me and keeping things going at home when I was away. I would also like to thank Joe, Grania, Mike, Catherine, my supervisor Alison. I've had the time of my life the last 2 years. Thank you.